Hey guys, we've had about a week now to play with the patch and get used to its changes, and I wanted to talk a bit about how I found the patch so far and what I think about where the game is heading from here and how we're doing. So the patch that landed last Friday for selected servers has been out now for nearly a week, and there's been a bunch of changes, and there's been a bunch of changes we don't know about, and there's been a few controversial changes as well that I'm sure you'll have seen in the general chat and on the Discord are not very popular. I wanted to kind of just put my thoughts out on how I think about this update, on what I think about this update, and my stance on some of these changes. So the main obvious changes are we got a bunch of new heroes, we got 6 new legendary heroes, and we got I think 3 epic heroes. They changed rangers to fighters, and they've adjusted a bunch of hero skills. Now the changes to hero skills are interesting, but I just wish we could see them. And we've been told at the moment, I believe that we may be able to see them on the coming Monday, December 5th, is a unofficial ballpark date we were giving on the official Discord. So hopefully then we'll see the official patch notes. From what I understand, I believe Calypso has been nerfed slightly. People I know who've built As1 are also quite upset that he's been nerfed, and I don't really know about the rest of them. These are mostly heroes that I don't have or haven't built. I don't know if I have almost any of these guys. I definitely haven't built them. Now, my stance on this is I understand if you need to rebalance stuff. That's just the nature of these games, especially when you're bringing in new characters all the time. There's going to be a lot of power creep. I don't like the idea of nerfing people like As1. The reason for that is these are fusion heroes. As1 is a fusion hero. You can get him, anyone can get him on a free-to-play account. And for a lot of people, especially people with very bad luck, these are your staple heroes. These are the guys who get stuff done. And nerfing these is kind of just not a great feeling. People will have invested a lot of time and effort and energy into building these heroes. They're staple in a lot of runs. Now, I don't know the extent of As1's changes. Again, we haven't got the patch notes. I can understand it if it's related purely to Arena. I think As1 was slightly overrepresented in Arena. His slowing and rooting ability was very potent, but I just don't know enough. I don't have him myself, and we haven't had the patch notes. So I'm hoping that the nerfs are only affecting his Arena presence and are not affecting him in raids and in campaign progression, because that's really where players want him. We'll see when the patch notes go up, but again, I don't feel good about nerfing any hero fusion units, because these should really be there to help free-to-play players and to help players have more accessible options to get into some of the later game content and to give them starter teams to build out. So I would prefer if they left them at a pretty good standing, but we'll see when we get the official notes through. Now beyond that, some of the other big changes, we had a change to gear. Now on paper people were really happy with these changes. People liked reducing the amount of healing bonus drops that we would get. People mostly liked some of the adjustments of the gear sets. And people like the idea of ancient mythic gear being brought back in. Now, ancient mythic gear has been quite controversial. This is one of the big topics of this patch. And the reason it's been quite controversial is because, one, they are exceedingly rare, which by itself is not seen as a problem. I think most people in the community do not mind that they are rare. But the problem is that when you get hold of them, eventually, and I've got one, by the way, and I have been farming like crazy. If you see my Oracle's Trial for Lost Legacy, I am pretty far ahead in farming because I just farm like crazy because I really wanted to get an ancient legendary, an ancient mythic, and I finally got one, and I'll show it to you and then I'll explain what the actual difference is. So you can see this is mine and it rolled up okay. It's not bad. It's definitely not a bad piece of gear. However, I farmed God knows how much to get one drop. So from my understanding, the only difference between an ancient myth gear piece and a myth gear piece is that the ancient myth gear pieces, I think they're almost guaranteed to have 3 ideal substats. So for example, you see this is basically perfect on the substats. We have attack bonus, crit chance, attack speed, and crit damage on an attack bonus set, the elite mage set. That's pretty much as good as it's going to get for a DPS that wants this set. You have everything you want. And so that's cool, but that's the only difference, right? So that technically means on paper, you could also just pick up another ancient myth gear piece that has the same subs. So this one is mostly pretty good. Sure, the HP flat is not great. And this is a healing piece because Anvita wants attack. But anyway, I digress. The point is, the amount of runs you will do to eventually get an ancient myth piece, and then it's just the starting point is as good as like a fairly lucky pickup. It's not really... Most players aren't particularly happy that that's it. Because then you have to upgrade it. and then you upgrade it and it rolls 1 to 2 bars, and you're just thinking, well, this isn't useful, this is crap. This one, the only one I have as an example on my account is this one, and this didn't roll too bad. I have one just in purple and one just about before purple. It's not bad. It's usable for me at my stage. I'm sure a lot of later game players would bin this, but for me, I'll find someone to put it on. The main problem with this is you farm all this time, you finally get an ancient myth piece, you roll it up and it rolls crap. You're thinking, well, what was the point in that? I just farmed like 1,000 items near enough to get to this point, to get this one drop. And it doesn't really feel particularly special. It's the same item. It's just got better substats on it. It's just a lucky item drop, basically, for that rarity. So a lot of people would prefer it if these had somehow increased main stats. So maybe this had 10-20% more base attack. Or another suggestion is it guaranteeing that its substats will be at least purple. I don't agree with the substat thing. Again, I feel like it's just the same as a normal piece of gear then, right? It's just like a shiny Pokemon card. It's not that different. It's just a well-rolled normal gear. I personally prefer the main stat being a bit higher. Because effectively, right, that's kind of the difference you're looking at anyway, but at least you know that the maximum potential of an Ancient Myth is higher than a myth piece, right? Because the main stat is a bit higher. It's not crazy, especially on a weapon. On an Ancient Myth should really be 2 bars. I think 3 bars would be obviously very nice for the player base, but I feel like that would be maybe pushing it a bit far, but I don't know, we'll see what the developers think. But I like the idea that the Ancient Myths, their maximum potential is higher than a myth gear piece, if that makes any sense. I like the idea that at their absolute best, Ancient Myths are better, because it makes them a bit more alluring, it makes them more special. So that's my thoughts on the Ancient Myth gear. Overall, I think it's cool that they added them. It adds a bit more depth to farming. There was some concern that, well, isn't this going to be power creeping? Or isn't this going to be ruining the end game because earlier players will get them as well? Because the way the patch notes sounded, we'd be getting these early. However, if you take a look, the Ancient Myths start dropping from stage 16 to 18. I feel like they should just be dropping on stage 18. They shouldn't be dropping before stage 18. You really want to encourage players to push for stage 18. They drop so rarely that by the time you get one, you've probably made it to stage 18 anyway. But again, I feel like it's great to add more levels to kind of encourage players to push for the later tier. So that's what I'll say on Ancient Myth gear. I like the concept. I think it's cool. I've heard some upset that healing effect has crit damage substats mixed with it, so you have 2 countering subs that just don't make sense. Healing effect and crit damage, you don't want to see those 2 together. Ancient Myth gear, I feel like they can iron this out and they can work it out over time. There's been a lot of upset on the official Discord, so I think that in the next patch there's a chance that maybe they'll change something to do with them. My personal philosophy with this stuff is not to ask for too much, because if you really beg the developers for too much, then either they'll get tired of hearing you complaining and they'll ignore you, and they'll get used to, okay, these guys just whine and we could never make them happy, so let's not try. Or they will take something away as compensation. So maybe they'll give us that, but then they'll make it even harder to get them, or they'll make it even more expensive to upgrade gear, or what have you. So I feel like it's better to take a measured approach. Beyond gear, there were some changes to artifacts. I don't really have any strong opinions on this yet. I haven't got a great deal of myth artifacts. I've got a handful. The Pantheon has been updated. There is now Demetrius been replaced by Hyperion. Again, things don't quite line up. So if you're far in the shelter insignia because you're farming the basic faction raid, then it's fine. You get these ones. But if you're farming these ones now, if you notice, I can't upgrade these, but that's because if I go to my faction trial on Nightmare, I'm getting rewarded with the blue ones, the agility insignias 2. But to upgrade, I need agility insignia 1. So you're kind of almost punished or / encouraged to go back on yourself. Say, well, I can farm this, but really I should be farming stage 4 because that's how I upgrade my Hyperion, right? My Pantheon. But that's not, no one wants to do that, right? Everyone's going to be blasting to try and get to stage 9. One of 2 things will happen. Either we'll have to go back and just farm it until we reach that point, or the developers will allow us to upgrade using higher tier materials as they did before when we had the little lizard fella, Dimitri. So for now, my plan is just to keep farming ahead. You're never going to not need the ones ahead, so I figure it's safer than going backwards and farming when they might change it in future anyway. It's new content. I like the content. In regards to the actual trials themselves, to talk about the actual content of the faction trials, I actually quite like it. I think it's interesting. My only concern is I don't think it's challenging enough. Obviously, I'm not to the end yet, so those are big words. Those are fighting words. But of the suggested team, as you can see, I am packing. I have a lot of these fellas. It's kind of a doozy on Nightmare, and if you go by the recommended BP, I'm pretty sure I would already smash stage 9, which you would expect. But then even for some of the other trials, Trial of the North, I don't have a proper team built for this stuff. I've got one 6-star and it's Shark King. And I'm already feeling like it's quite comfortable. It's never close. He always decimates everything. I'm sure I'll make it, if not to the final stage, maybe just the one stage before it, before I need to even build another hero. I love the concept. I think it's great for early to mid-game players. It's nice, juicy content for them to look at and to consider for future heroes. But I'm hoping they add more stages soon, because I can tell, you can see by the colorings of this, 4, 4, 1. At the very least, they're probably going to add 3 more stages, right, to push us up to stage 12 on each of these faction raids. Now, I think at that point it will get quite challenging, it'll be quite interesting. Probably in future this will just keep going down, they'll keep adding stages and it will get very challenging, and I think that's where the fun will come in. I think it's a tricky one for the developers, because if they added all those stages now and it went up to like stage 16, and you've got to have like 6 to 8 fully built, really heavy hitting 6 stars, max skill, high awakening, top gear, barely anyone is going to be able to do it, and people will be upset and say, oh, this is whale content only. It's fine, right? Like, my stance on this stuff is events should be accessible for everyone, because events players should be able to look forward to. And by events, I mean like seasonal events. Like the Captain Reeve event we had, I think was quite interesting, but I think it was too hard for a lot of newer players. I feel like the end game content is where you should be stacking difficulty, and you should be allowing players to push themselves. We should be pushing up to a stage 20 in most content and just saying, hey man, if you can do it, enjoy. And if the players can't do it, you have something to work towards. That's my perspective. I think events that are seasonal, that are not recurring like weekly events, should be more accessible so everyone has something to enjoy. And the long-term raid content should be very difficult, and we should be pushing a lot more stages, and we should be focusing on that as your long-term progression goals. I understand we're still developing, we're getting there, but that's what I would like to see for the future of the faction trials. Obviously they're going to be adding some more factions in, and that's going to be cool as well, but long-winded, but overall I would say I quite like the content, I like the features, I like the idea that I'm going to be having to build heroes I would never normally want to build. I'm building Harpoon at the moment because he seems kind of interesting. I don't have many marksmen, and he'll be very good for the north, so I'm building this guy up, or I will be at some point. So I like that. I think the content's good. There's some very minor hiccups that people have complained about regarding the currency to upgrade Hyperion, but other than that, the Pantheon's new update and the update to the faction trials has been received fairly well, I think. Beyond that, they've also increased Tide from 105 to 125 stages, so they've added 20 stages. I can't scroll to the bottom of the notice. Guys, what is going on? Please, no. Alright. So, I'm actually kind of stuck in mine. I managed to progress today. I got to wave 113, so I've got 12 stages left to go. And it's getting tricky now. It's nice to have more challenging content, and some of my strong guildmates are having trouble in some of the later waves as well, like wave 119, 120. So it's cool that we have more difficult content. It feels, every time I do it, I have a different result. So I failed just a bit, and then I redid it 3 times doing the same thing, and then I won. So I don't know how that works, but it's cool to have more challenging content. It's not that many flaws, so I assume most players will get through it quite quick. But again, that's the current fairly late game players are having some trouble near the end. So that's cool. That gives us a bit of stuff to work towards. So I'm okay with that. Overall, from the changes we've got, I think the new heroes are pretty cool. I like the general changes with the gear. I'm not as upset about the Ancient Myth gear as most people are. I feel like it just needs another tweak. I feel like the developers will see the feedback and they'll have to consider maybe we should increase the minimum substat for rolling threshold, or maybe we'll increase the base main stat to make it more powerful. And I think that will do it. That will make it fine. I don't mind the rarity. It just make it kind of worth it, a bit more worth it than it is. And then I think it's golden. I like the idea. I think it's cool. So I'm alright with that. I feel like they're going in the right direction with gear. The last thing to mention is one of the more controversial ones. And oh look, my shop has just refreshed in time. So the last one is, if you notice, I'm on 29 stamina. I've got 2 huge stamina potions. And if I ran out and I wanted to refill, it would cost me 60 diamonds. And look, my shop has refreshed and there are no huge stamina potions. And this isn't just a coincidence. Most of the time there will not be huge stamina potions. It seems to be like a stealth nerf that happened during this recent patch, where huge stamina potions have dried up. The factory has run out of ink. I don't know what's happened, but there were just no more huge stamina potions. You get them super rarely. A lot of players are saying they'll get maybe 2 or 3 a day from re-rolling their shop, and it means it's very hard to actually play the game, especially late when your main objective is just farming raids, getting gear, getting cash, getting XP. And now it's really hard to do that because there's no stamina potions in the shop. You can't buy them. So obviously, well, yeah, I can just buy the refresh for 60 diamonds, right? You don't have to get a discounted one. But 20% discount is quite a lot at a minimum, all the way up to 35, which is a substantial discount. So it hits your diamond reserves very heavily, not having discounted potions in the store. Every time you would have bought 5, you would have got a 6th one extra for free. So it's quite a loss, even at the lowest level of discount, and a lot of players are very upset about this. They see this as a way that the developers are forcing players to spend real-life money to buy stamina, effectively, buy diamonds to buy stamina so that they can play the game. They see it as a way of being bullied into spending money. There are people who have bought the privilege pack, and they are saying, I bought the privilege card, but how can I actually use it when I don't have any stamina? Now, I think it's fair that players are upset by this. I think you want to play the game, and anything which makes it harder for you to actually play the game is not a great change, and that's what it comes down to, right? If it's now harder for you to actually play the game, it's going to be kind of upsetting. I think the main takeaway from this is that the players are obviously really enjoying the game if they're really upset that they're playing it less. It's not like you can only play it for 5 minutes and you're done. You'll still have a large amount of stamina to get through in a day. You get loads of diamonds from Guild Boss, and you get a bunch from other events and quests. So players definitely have stamina to play. It's just they want to play more. They want to keep playing. I feel like the developers want us to keep playing as well. Some of the reaction to this has been slightly overblown. I hope that doesn't upset anyone too much. I think we have already voiced our opinion enough. The developers should be well aware that players are not happy about this. We have put forward some suggestions. Most people just want them back. Now, my stance on this is I don't mind that they are gone from the shop. In my opinion, this shop is dysfunctional. It doesn't really work. The top row is cool. Having like trash fodder to buy to upgrade stuff, I think is cool. It's actually useful. If you need it, it's there. It refreshes at a decent amount. 4 every refresh is good. It makes sense. Now the rest of the store is crap. I don't care about any of this stuff. Like sometimes I'll buy these, rarely, because I don't want to waste stamina farming them. So I don't mind these for gold. But anything for diamonds, like what are you on? 32 diamonds to buy rare insignia, like insignia of melee attack 1? I mean, any of them, even Insignia Melee Attack 3, you would never buy this with diamonds. It's just a crazy expenditure, especially for how high it is. If it was 1 or 2, then sure, maybe. So that's just garbage. And then the gear is only rare or epic. So this is useful if you're just starting the game. You might want to buy some of the epic gear. But beyond that, it's all crap. You don't want to buy any of that stuff. Nothing from those 2 rows is useful. And then sometimes they sell legendary extracts. Okay, maybe with gold, never with diamonds. They sell myth extracts. Maybe with gold, never with diamonds, because it just doesn't work out. On average, it takes you 1 refill, like 1 huge stamina potion, to farm up your own myth extract if you're reasonably lucky. 2 at most, I would say. So that's what, like, if you're buying them from the shop at a discount, 40 diamonds per pop. So maybe 40 to 80 diamonds to get a myth extract. Or you can buy it from the shop for free, 400 diamonds. No one's going to buy that. That's lunacy. So I think the problem is the shop. I feel like it's okay that huge potions aren't represented as much in the shop. I feel like them being missing highlights how bad the shop is. It's just all crap. Either you get the huge potions, which are valuable, or you get the summoning crystals, which are valuable. Those are the only 2 valuable things that you can get from the shop. Beyond that, it's garbage. You buy fodder and you ignore everything else. They need to resolve that problem. They should include weapons of a higher tier, legendary and mythic gear. And hell, why not? Throw in ancient mythic gear. If it's super rare, then it's cool when it appears, right? Make it expensive. Make it cost $1 million. Make it, whatever. Who cares? Just add more stuff. It makes it more interesting. That's my stance. Now, the reason I don't mind huge stamina potions being missing from the shop is because it's kind of weird if you have a system where you can buy stamina outright for 60 diamonds, and then no one ever does it because you can always get it from the shop, right? The default mechanism should be you buy it outright for 60 diamonds or whatever the base cost is, and then it's a treat when you see it in the shop for a discount. I feel like that's how that's supposed to work, which is why I'm not jumping on the developers for this. I think maybe I'm just being hopeful, that's how they see it. It doesn't make sense if every player only buys it from the shop, because then the shop is basically just a stamina shop, right? It's not an actual market. They just add another tab and call it a stamina tab. So my opinion is that they should leave the rarity as is, increase the discount slightly, and lower the actual base cost of buying a diamond refill. So if you were going to buy a stamina, instead of it being 60 for a huge stamina potion when you buy it without a discount, make it 50. Make it 50 or 45. 50, I think 50 is okay. It's enough of a discount that players would mostly be okay with it. It's more on demand. You don't have to rely on the RNG of the shop refilling. And then you can have the discounts in the shop feel meaningful. You see, like, oh, cool, I got, 1 for 30 diamonds this time. And it makes the shop more balanced and more measured, and we have space to do more interesting stuff with the shop. So my opinion is we should lower the base refill from 60 to 50 diamonds, and we should leave the rarity as it is in the shop, maybe increase the discount when you do see it, and the shop should become more valuable. Get rid of this bait. This is just noob traps. Like, anyone buying these with diamonds, you have made a mistake. You probably did it when you were new to the game. No one who's played the game for a long time, bar an accident or a long weekend of drinking, is going to buy one of these with diamonds. They should be introducing better gear. Again, randomize the whole thing, but you should be able to get legendary and mythic gear from the shop. It's cool then. I would check the shop very regularly if that was the case. At the moment, people only check the shop hoping for summoning crystals or stamina potions, and I feel like it should be a lot more than that. You should be able to get gear, you should be able to have more interesting stuff. A suggestion I put forward to the developers is there's actually 3 types of potion. Sell them all, put them all in the shop. I'll stockpile anything, give me any potion, I'll take it. That's my stance on the potion issue. That is probably the biggest issue of the patch. A lot of people are upset. People are threatening to refund, threatening to quit the game. That's how much people are enraged by this issue. My stance is they've heard us now. There's been enough feedback on the Discord. People have said it enough times. The developers have read through those. I got a message from them regarding some feedback I put, so they are definitely going through the feedback on the Discord. Now all we can do is wait and see what they do with that. Hopefully they will get back to us and let us know maybe it was a miscalculation and they didn't realize how much players lent on the store, or maybe they didn't realize how much it would piss people off. Hopefully they do. Hopefully they get back to us and they say, okay, look, we'll do this, we'll do that, XYZ, and we'll take it from there. So overall, I like the patch. Obviously it has its own controversies, but I think it's a good patch. I think it's a good direction. Sure, there are some things which are not great. I would personally prefer to give the developers the benefit of the doubt on this one and see where they go in the next patch. Until they respond, we don't really know what's happening, right? So fingers crossed that the developers read all of our feedback and come back to us with a solution or with their thoughts on the matter. And hopefully we have another patch soon that corrects a few of the issues, because I really do think the only issues that have been introduced by this patch are very easily solved. So overall, I'm quite happy with the patch. I feel like we're going in a good direction, and I'll be doing another video in the next week when we finally get the hero patch notes so we can look at what they've actually done to heroes. So I'll see you then. Have a good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.